możemy rozpocząć, ponieważ jest godzina 12:03.
I believe we can start right now because it's 3 minutes past noon and all participants invited have joined us. In any case, you can always listen to the recording because our conference is being recorded and the recording will be published on our website. As usual, the presentation will be started by Dariusz Mańko, Chairman of the Board, and then we will have members of the board responsible for the segments discussing the key issues, key activities, and in the end, Rafał Warpechowski, the CFO, will discuss the financial part. I believe we can start right now. President, please go ahead. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a typical conference for us. This is the first time it is happening in my career. But I hope that because that there are so many of us, I also invited Mr. Lechowicz, President of Alupol Packaging. I just wanted you to have all the people who work on the first line, because this is not a typical situation. We were expecting a lot of questions, also detailed questions, and we've received them. And Rafa will be presenting a flexible packaging segment. But ladies and gentlemen, what can I tell you as the chairman of the whole group? Well, I have to praise my team, thank my team. So everyone that you will be hearing today, as well as the whole team, all employees, because we have to say that we passed the test in this difficult moment. All procedures worked. We had those procedures in our company, maybe frozen a little bit, including the Risk Management Committee, which commenced working right away once the pandemic started. So we were able to isolate our employees, introduce home office, and avoid all the disturbances in our production, logistics, deliveries, or transport. Everything worked as it should have. Of course, we weren't able to avoid infections at all. We had some cases in our company, but still the procedures worked. Those people were isolated, all procedures worked. We have a risk management committee and reports. They are dealing with the situation very well. I need to emphasize it that I am greatly impressed with the involvement of our employees. I'd like to thank them. But business-wise, ladies and gentlemen, well, this is what happens when something non-typical takes place. There are macroeconomic changes happening, and this is connected with the environment in which the company operates. And we have to mention the dropping prices of raw materials and the growing prices of foreign currencies. These are two factors that are favorable for us because cheaper raw materials means a better situation for us. They are also connected with export. A higher prices of US dollar and euro is favorable for us as well. So these are the factors that help us in this difficult situation. Of course, there were some disturbances in some countries. These are not really big units, facilities. I'm talking about Belgium that was closed down, or Slovenia on lockdown for 2 weeks, or UK. I mean, our facilities. But on the level of our results of the whole group, it didn't translate to the general level of our results. And those facilities are being reopened and they are back into operation. So we've managed the situation, and you can see it in our results after the first quarter. They are quite good. I can only apologize to you because we are so brave, and we still provided you with our preliminary forecast. That was a secure kind of forecast. as compared to what we are actually showing you right now. But mid-March, we had more question marks. We didn't know how the economy will behave, what decisions will be taken by the government. So we weren't over-optimistic, and therefore our preliminary forecast was quite secure. And the results, the actual results, are so much better. And we are very happy about those results because we have a surplus as compared to our plans for the first quarter. And that's a good message. And that's a good situation when it comes to cash flows, for instance. And we feel quite comfortable in this difficult situation. Difficult for many companies that we see on every day that operate around our group. And we are a big company, big entity in this region. I mean, Kęty, Tychy, Biała, Opole. So we take responsibility for the community, for the healthcare system. We continue supporting them. And whenever we can, we provide support to those entities who function around us. And we feel responsible as a big company for our community to function well, so that we go through the whole situation and we can resume normal life as soon as possible. So I mean here, small companies, smaller entities, some of them are in such difficult situation that without our small support and understanding, they may have problems with pulling through. So this is our mission right now. This is how we function right now, and we're very happy that in this difficult time we are a pillar and hope for the whole environment, all companies that cooperate with us, but also our employees who are so happy and appreciate that we continue operation, we continue having orders, and nothing serious happened to us. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to the segments. Now, President Lechowicz will tell you more, will give you more details about segments. Gentlemen, Rafał Lechowicz, I am the president of Alu Packaging S.A., the biggest entity in Kęty Group, so flexible packaging. We are talking about three entities operating in Tychy, Kęty, and Alupol Films in Oświęcim. In Tychy and Kęty we manufacture flexible packagings, and in Oświęcim we started to produce BOPP films in 2016-2017, very successfully because we cover 7% of European demand. Ladies and gentlemen, we just ended the first quarter, the best so far. The sales amounted to 245 million zloty. And the sales grew by 22% as compared to the first quarter in 2019, whereas the growth in packaging was 3% and in BOPP films 75%. The key factor behind the growth was the launching of the second manufacturing line for BOPP films in Oświęcim, which happened 6 months before the planned launching date. As I've said, during the first quarter, the sales grew by 22%, whereas the profits were growing twice as fast. Operational profit grew up to 41 million zloty. Packaging grew from 24 to 31 million zloty, where films grew more than 100%, from 4.6 million to 10 million zloty. EBITDA grew by 39%, from 36 million to over 50 million zloty, which was a record-setting achievement in the history of the group. EBITDA in the packaging grew to 38 million, and in foils from 6 to 12 million Polish zloty. And right now I need to emphasize that the EBITDA in the films is on a growing path. In March this year, the EBITDA profit was over 5 million as compared to 2 million in March 2019. And the margin in on the level of EBITDA across the whole group was record-setting. It was 20.4%. So this is 2.4 percentage point higher than in the first quarter of 2019, whereas the packaging operated with 20% margin and foils 30% margin. In the foil business, film business, the margin was nearly 15%. And in April, it will be over 20%. And thereby, the planned profit in the film business should be around 7 million in April. And such high margin in Alupol films is the result of the optimization of prices according to the situation, as well as the synergy. So that was the optimized production processes, but we were also using the capacity effect, scale effect, because of the capacities that were increased. So the operational profit was around 31 million zloty, and it was higher by 1/3 as compared to the result in the first quarter of 2019. The structure of sales in Alupol is optimal in the context of the market and the product. 52% is exported and 48% is sold in the country domestically. 60% of our products are highly processed packaging, and 40% are the BOPP films. Ladies and gentlemen, we had a question about the forecast for the coming forecast, but in this situation, well, it is a very big risk to have a forecast in this situation. I can actually tell you about the April. As of today, it seems that April will be the first month in the history where the margins in both segments, films and flexible packaging, so the margins will be higher than 20%. The segment is using around 99% of the production capacities, and despite of the disturbances on the market and the slowdown that is actually affecting our main customers, especially those who are delivering to the hotels, restaurants and catering business. Well, here still the Alupol company is standing by its forecast, initial forecast. So I am at your disposal if you have any other questions. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. And now extruded product segments and Piotr Wysocki. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The extruded product segments. A couple of words about the first quarter. It was a very good first quarter. We can say that it was like a record-setting quarter sales. Let us look at the sales. And this is a higher sales, smaller sales, but this is connected with the fact that we went from 1,800 to 1,700, and this is going further. Now it's 1,500 right now, but we are very happy about the EBITDA. As compared to the last year, the growth is 26%, as well as the margin that grew by 2 percentage points. So higher EBITDA is connected with higher volumes. Now, taking a look at the industries, transport and automotive, we could see the effect of pandemic, coronavirus, smaller orders, and really big growth in wholesalers. And we've been leaving this industry several times before, but in March and February, we've actually used the opportunity and we actually sent our products to the wholesalers, mostly to the Western Europe, to Germany, geographically, markets by geographically. Well, Germany is growing, Italy is growing, which is quite strange, because Italy was actually flat. But Germany needed our profiles, and Italians are the biggest supplier of profiles to Germany, and they couldn't really do that during pandemic time, so we used this opportunity, and now sales in terms of amounts, growth by 1,400 tons in the first quarter. So we had a record-setting month when we sold 7,800 tons. This is what we sold. That was a record-setting achievement. Growth 8% as compared to the previous quarter. The manufacturing production capacities after the first quarter, we were talking about 90% of capacities used, so we still have 10% spare, and if the situation continues like that, we still can add to our production. An interesting fact is an implementation of a new robot. So the automation, robotization, that was the direction that we took on. Another robot was launched, and it was slightly different because before we were buying the devices and we were buying the integration as well, the so-called integration. And today we've changed our approach. We are not buying integration. We are doing the integration ourselves. Our engineers are doing that. They are now quite capable. They've got the expertise and are able to do that themselves. And therefore, the implementation of the robot is now 40% less. Well, we've spent several million zloty, 21 million zloty, mostly on matrix and so on. As at today, we know what is the situation in terms of the virus. I will not be dwelling onto that, but let's look at the investments. We focus on the most necessary investments, and that's also for the overhauls, for the repairs. We are focusing on the most important repairs if we can see that a device may be in trouble. Now, foreign companies. We only stopped the production in Slovenia in our company. This happened on the 19th of April. That was actually connected with the break of our customers in Slovenia, in Austria, because some of the production is sent to Austria. But as of today, we are operating, we are manufacturing and selling. Now, with regard to Ukraine, the first quarter wasn't so much affected by the coronavirus there. Our production continued normally according to the orders from the market. But what we did, we actually introduced the same thing as in Poland. That was the home office. And let me emphasize that our sales model in Europe through the agents that we have, representatives that we have, as at today, with the situation that we have, closed borders, no flights, this model works fantastically. We have a dedicated company in Italy, Grupa Kęty Italia, where we have Italians working. The same situation is in Czech Republic. Those people are there, and they could continue active operation as far as possible in the situation that they were in. But this model worked very well during that time, and we will be focusing on this model in the future as well. That's all from me. Now I give the floor to my colleague. Thank you so much. And now we are moving on to the Aluminium Systems segment. Hello, ladies, gentlemen. Tomasz Grela, Aluminium Systems segments. Again, just like with my colleagues, I have to report a record-setting sales in all areas, despite the fact that during the first quarter we didn't record the sales under contracts. I am talking about Mennica and Poseidon projects, but we were actually able to catch up with sales in the segments. Also very good EBITDA and net profit. EBITDA, again, a record-setting achievement, 61 million. So 34% growth as compared to the previous quarter, what was the reason for a very good result? Well, the change in the product structure, as I've mentioned, sales, no sales in the facilities, projects, so no low margin sales, but we had more product sales, but also a better prices for the foreign currencies, so more money for export and lower prices of aluminium. And now with regard to the product structure, we stand by the growing sales in architectonic and roller shutters segment, and the restriction is in the ready product sales, and that's connected with what I've mentioned already. These are the projects that are continued. And in this difficult time, we were able to continue sales and deliveries to all markets, and we have no problems with our deliveries. And the situation that we have made us reorganize the model with our customers, sales and marketing and technical support. And we also had to introduce new tools, but I will talk about those tools later on during my presentation, where anyways, as compared to our competitors in Europe, we do very well. We didn't limit our operations on any market, and well, every kilogram of the profile that we deliver in Poland, Europe and abroad comes from our companies, production companies in Poland. So we don't have production companies in any other countries, therefore no limitations there, and that translated to a continued customer support. So we also observed a lot of interest in our products during the first quarter, and we were able to win many interesting projects, and they will be implemented this and next year. And I don't know if you can see that in my presentation, but we wanted to show you the new contracts that we have. So this is one of the buildings in Warsaw, 155 meters tall. This will be another skyscraper in Warsaw for us. Also, foreign projects were very popular. We are particularly happy about the markets that are still new for us, for instance, Lithuania or Scandinavia. We are also very happy to report that the Ukrainian market is growing and developing very well. We are also observing signals that some of the projects will be stopped, their implementation will be stopped. We are talking about trading and hotel projects. And there is a lot of hesitation with starting new projects that may have consequences next year. As far as sales is regarded, we can't really talk about the scales. It's very hard to talk about that right now. A couple of words about American market. As of today, we are implementing 5 projects there. They are implemented according to the schedule. One is 95% done, and the rest of them are on different stages, preparatory stages, and we haven't heard about closing down any of the construction sites, even if our contract is only on production and delivery, not the assembly. So even if the construction is closed down, still our schedule, our contract continues without any disturbances. That was the US. Let me just give you one more comment about the US that concerns one of the questions that were asked last time during the previous conference. Well, we've we've actually checked the customs, and that actually the duties do not apply to any products that we send to US. About the investments, we've actually spent 13 million zloty during the first quarter, and similarly to the previous segment, we are focusing on the necessary investments only, and so the repairs are just the necessary repairs. So the construction of the production hall in Opole will also be postponed. And now the companies abroad during pandemic, well, they function. Of course, United Kingdom and Belgium, well, they are doing not as good because the close downs of companies there affected also our customers. We are using the assistance of Belgium and British government according to all the legal requirements, and Czechia, Germany, Ukraine, Hungary, and the Netherlands, well, we are operating there without any disturbances. And in the end, I'd like to share with you what I've mentioned before. So the change that we had to do with regard to the customer support, our representatives, our agents or technical support agents are not contacting the customer directly as before, but we've launched a webinar series, and we have several customers taking part in these webinars. These are webinars dedicated to our customers, architects, and we have already trained around 1,000 customers. We have similar trainings for the employees, for our employees, and the contact before the employee and customer is just via video conferences, and we've bought special tools for that, and our customers, our partners appreciate that a lot. And just to share a short comment, and despite all the problems in the last quarter, we've won 2 awards, Top Builder for 2 products, the segment wall that was done in Mennica project, and Styrotherm system, and the leader of quality, consumer leader of quality award that we received from our customers. So that was in the category of profiles and aluminium. So that's all from me. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And now we are moving on to the financial part. And Mr. Warpechowski, the CFO, will be presenting. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Slide 16. This is the summary of the consolidated P&L of the company. A lot of good news. Sales was higher by 6% as compared to the previous year, around 50 million zloty growth. As you could see in the previous presentations, this is mostly the flexible packaging and aluminium area. The decrease there was compensated in the higher sales of the aluminium products. Well, the profit, 146 million zloty, that was recorded by the group, growth by have untypical one-off events this year, and from the perspective of results, we closed down the whole quarter without negative effect of the pandemic. Especially good month was March, and that was the reason why the actual achievements were so much higher than the forecast. 8 million zloty growth in extruded products, 15 million higher EBITDA in the aluminium segment, and the biggest dynamics in the flexible packaging segment, where very successfully the second manufacturing film line was working. In operations, we have 108 million, 31 million zloty more year on year. We also had the FX below 1%. So as an effect, the group delivered 83 million zloty net profit, 25 million zloty more as compared to the same time last year. Next slide. This is the comment of our cash flow situation. This EBITDA helped us to finance the working capital, cover the taxes, and cover 41 million zloty of investments, and to decrease the debt by 62 million zloty, starting as at the end of last year. Slide 18. This is the proof of our stable situation. In the end of the first quarter, net debt EBITDA was around 1.2, and the leverage is 32%. And this is a good basis for the coming quarters, and actually proves the good financial situation of the company. And almost 1/3 of our debt are short-term products. Maturity date is between third and fourth quarter. So we still have around 6 months until the maturity date, but we are in contact with the banks. We are preparing for the whole process, as at the moment we don't have any better signals in this area. And now a couple of words about the future, the nearest future. Of course, it is very difficult to give you any forecast because the whole situation is changing very fast. But generally, we believe that the raw materials, the dropping trend will stop at some point, and there are signals that the prices of raw materials will be growing. So now, stable situation, operations. Our forecasts in the end of March moved to new months. So the second and third quarters may be the quarters with the pressure on the volume and margin. We are talking about limiting by several percent. We are talking about aluminium area. We also believe that the flexible packaging, we believe that our operation there will remain the same according to the plan. And we are focusing on our operations. We are introducing new plans, optimization plans. In March, we prepared investment optimization plan, and we implemented. Of course, we respond very fast to what is happening on the market. And now, if our scenario works out, so a temporary change of the scale of our operation, it seems that a very good first quarter, some limits in the second and third quarter, and in the fourth quarter we will come back to normality. And that would help us to stand by our yearly forecasts. So those deviations, we believe that with the deviations that we are seeing right now, we shouldn't be changing the forecast as now. So we are still standing before the decision. On the 4th of June, we will have a meeting, and we will be presenting a recommendation for 2019 profit distribution. So we will be presenting in the near future. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is the end of the presentation. And let's start the questions. We really have a lot of questions. So let me start with the first question. What is the drop of demand that you forecast per products in individual months of the second quarter? And now the chairman, please go ahead and answer the question. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been observing, basing on the conversations with customers and orders, we can expect several or a dozen percent of drop, decreased orders in aluminium and extruded products, but in flexible packaging, no drops so far. If any, then just a couple of percent. So we are quite optimistic about the second quarter. So if so, then dozen or so percent of decrease. Another question: in the context of this situation, current situation, are you planning to limit the investment that were planned to be done this year? Let me remind that the plan was to spend 213 million. Rafał Warpechowski will answer the question. Yes, in fact, 213 million zloty were planned to be spent. The 32 million zloty was for the flexible packaging, and this capex is really advanced and necessary. So we are talking about 180 million zloty. As of today, we have a plan of reducing our spendings by 60 up to 80 million zloty. These are two variants that we have right now, but of course this will be analyzed as well. As Chairman Grela has said, a huge task is the production hall in Opole, and we are taking into account postponing this project. Thank you so much. And another question: are you planning to limit, to restrict employment? And the chairman: right now, no. No, referring to the previous answer, if the decrease is just by dozen or so percent, well, that affects some of the divisions where we work on 4 shifts, and we can actually always move to 3 shifts as well. In extruded products, we have 230 people outsourced, and we had to say goodbye with them. And if the situation continues, then we will be forced not to prolong the contract for another 130 people. But right now we are not planning to have any cuts as far as employment is concerned. Thank you so much. Another question, also for the chairman: will you be willing to use this crisis time for some attractive mergers and acquisitions? This is a very interesting question. Well, yes, if the opportunity presents itself, yes. We have to pay attention to this kind of opportunities and observe the situation, especially that we have a very good financial situation. But let's talk about September. We shall see how people deal with the pandemic, what will be their situation after the pandemic, how affected they will be. There is always if there is a good opportunity, we are always interested in it, but it's too early to talk about that right now. And I believe that everyone on the market are looking around, because the situation will change definitely, and the power structure will change as well after this period. Well, we were quite lucky and quite wise to be in the process of big investments or after a merger or acquisition. we weren't in this situation that we had to introduce new procedures and manage the companies remotely. For instance, well, if we bought the company far away, well, we were lucky enough that we were in a tight group. We knew each other well, and we feel quite strong in this group. And if somebody actually over invested and have problems right now, then if there are good opportunities presenting itself, then we will be interested. Another question for Chairman: when can we expect a new strategy from the company? Well, I promised you a new strategy, but I didn't expect that we will have the coronavirus. So we just wanted to stay in touch with you and ensure you that we will be working on the material, working on the strategic directions, which we've already discussed. But as far as the details are concerned, we have to sit down, we have a brainstorm, we have to have some advisors look at some areas of the market, and there are no good conditions to do so. Not mentioning that the board is not really sitting together in one room at one table. We are working remotely. So this is quite difficult to have that kind of conversation. But I believe that the situation will be better, will be improved, and we will be presenting the strategy this year. Let me be a diplomatic. In the second half of the year, we will be presenting the strategy. I hope we will be presenting the strategy. Thank you so much. Another question. How about any company in Poland or abroad? Will any of the companies ask for financial support? We've heard the answer partially, but let me ask Mr. Warpechowski to talk about the scale of the whole group. Thank you so much. So far, these are small amounts for our foreign companies. This support model is quite similar to the solutions used in Poland, introduced in Poland by the government, and financial support for our employees if the work time is reduced. We are talking about 200,000 zloty monthly for two companies in Aluminium Systems in Belgium and the UK. Maybe we will be able to receive a one-off amount connected with the facility in Slovenia. This will be less than 1 million zloty. As of today, we could use the support that was connected with the tax payments. We could postpone it in the group. We are talking about 2 months postpone. Well, that actually helps us with the cash flows, with fluidity. And now we have to observe the situation because the bigger support packages connected with the working time, with financial support, this is connected with the requirement of the dropping profits, dropping revenues by 20% year on year or month on month. And so far, as of today, our scenarios, our forecasts don't show this kind of decreases of revenues. So around 20 million zloty as of today. But this is the postponed tax payment. But direct payments, this is about 200,000 zloty. 1 million zloty in Slovenia. For dividend, Mr. Rafał Warpechowski said that the board is preparing the recommendation, working on the recommendation according to the deadlines that were accepted by the annual meeting. So that obliges us that within the next 2 weeks, the board must take a decision and announce the recommendation. This is what we can tell you right now. As far as the dividend is regarded. Next question in the report, you presented your forecast about the dynamics of revenues. Now I need to hear about the margins in the second quarter. How will that work for the segments in your group? I believe that Mr. Rafał Warpechowski will tell us more about that. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, well, the pressure on volumes will result in a pressure on margins. So I believe that it will be difficult to stick to continue the margins that we had in the first quarter, but we expect that aluminium and extruded products will be pressured the most. It's very hard to say because the market will verify that, but the margin and volume effects should not cause a deviation by the end of the year higher than 10% more than our forecast. This is the scenario that we believe will help us to go through this period safely. There is another question, more detailed question, and that goes for BOPP film, because Director Lechowicz said that the margin on the films margin was the record-setting margin. The question is about this record-setting margin will be kept on a long-term perspective, because so far the company presented information that the margin in the BOPP film should not be higher than 12-13%. So this record-setting current margin in BOPP films, can this be maintained in the longer run? Rafał Lechowicz, of course, that depends on the basis. So if we refer to the first quarter of 2020, where the margin was about 13%, close to 13% on the level of EBITDA, well, the margin, I believe, this year, according to my best knowledge, this margin is not at risk. But if we are talking about March 15% and April over 20%, I don't believe that we are able to keep those high margins in a long term. But I believe that we can have a forecast of around 13%. I believe that we can actually have this kind of margin. Thank you so much. Another question. Have you heard that any of your direct competitors in extruded products, so this is the question for Piotr Wysocki, have you heard about any problems there? Is there any chance to win new customers in this area, to have new clients? Piotr Wysocki, please go ahead. Yes, I can hear you. I also heard about the problems of our competitors. Now, looking at the situation by regions, so metal aluminium market, most of those production facilities are in northern Italy, where the coronavirus actually started, and those facilities were stopped. They were on lockdown officially, according to the report of the companies that are our biggest competitors, the Hydro company. On 30th of March, Hydro worked normally only in 45% of facility. 20% was completely closed, and the rest was limited, was having a limited operation. So we are talking only about the Hydro company. There is no info about other companies. These are some hard data. We've read the report, so this is what we are providing you with. This is the kind of hard data we are providing you with. Thank you so much. Next question. Next question is about the financial issues. Have you been observing any problems with payments in extruded or aluminium products? Which part of the payments have been insured in domestically and abroad? So, Mr. Warpechowski, please answer the question now. With the outdated payments, as at the end of March, not until today, no essential changes. These changes are connected with good March, the scale of operation. So these are, when we are talking about overdue payments, serious amounts, we are talking about 30 days. And we are not really observing any significant changes in terms of the value of the overdue payments as well as of the term. 80 to 90% in both extruded and aluminium products. Now, prepayments, these are very rare situations. So the situation is under control. There are no changes as of the end of March. Thank you so much for your answer. Another question goes for Chairman Grela. Have you seen the decision about starting new commercial projects that have not started the implementation phase? So design, general constructor. So on. Yes, I've signaled that in my presentation we are observing this kind of situations, projects. In addition to the projects that have been stopped, for instance, in the hotels and restaurant segment, there is still a lot of unknowns among the investors in terms of the future investments. So starting the project and with regard to the projects that we have been piloting for years, this situation may happen, and that may actually affect our sales next year. Now, as far as the scale and the length of this kind of effect, it's hard to say, but yes, we are observing this kind of situations. And now the question for Chairman Lechowicz. How much of the EBITDA profit in the flexible packaging, so 14 million growth, how much of it is due to new manufacturing production line or maybe other factors? Around 6 million comes from the new production line. 6 million are the raw materials, lower prices, and about 2 million rate. And Chairman Grela again. So the Aluminium Systems segment bases on the contract that were signed before. So what about the trend of aluminium prices dropping? Well, we used the dropping prices globally because we have a stable price list, and the last change of this price list happened a year and a half ago. So with long-term this contracts, this price index, the price list was just the same. So, well, our results were affected a little bit by that, but not significantly. Thank you so much for your answer. Another question goes regards dividend. So we talked about that. And now the question is, what level are we talking about in a very, very negative scenario? It's hard to say what that means, but anyways, in a highly negative scenario, how much can you actually limit your investments? Mr. Warpechowski, well, it all depends what you mean by very negative scenario. All scenarios that we presented you with, we may say that if we are talking about a dozen or so reduction of volumes, we wouldn't have to cut the capex by 60 million. Not even that. And we still have the program of 60 to 80 million zloty. Well, that includes postponing the development R&D projects. Well, in a very negative scenario, well, we are just fighting for life, but I don't know if this will ever happen, and we don't really have this kind of scenario as at the moment. So I'd say 60 up to 80 million zloty limitations. So this is a very bad scenario that is taken by us into account, that is actually reviewed. Yes, we believe that if the situation is really bad, then these are the postponing that will not disturb our operation, and we are able to work with several percent reduction of our volumes. So thank you so much. That is the answer for another question about the amount that was planned for 2020. As far as investments are regarded, yes, well, new strategy will be presented after holidays. Yes, as the chairman has said, yes, we would like to present it in the second half of the year. We will see if this is possible. So this is about the new strategy of the board. And another question, during the first quarter, the sales and production capacities were used to a very high level. But please provide me with the information with the planned availability of raw materials and the prices in the second quarter of this year. Mr. Warpechowski will answer the question. Let me quote the scenario that is being implemented right now. Let me comment it as follows. We are not expecting any disturbances as far as the deliveries of raw materials are regarded. Well, we will continue with the market prices, with the prices as per contract signed. So we are not expecting any disturbances here. Thank you so much. We also had a question on the growing sales in the segments, wholesalers. During the presentation, Mr. Wysocki actually talked about that during his presentation. Another question, why the drop of revenues? We also had a comment that the whole drop of revenues is because is due to the dropping prices of raw material, because aluminium prices in US dollars dropped by 9% year on year, but in Polish zloty by 6% year on year. That was the decrease. So this is the reason for the decreased sales in extruded product sales. Do you stand by the payment of the dividend? Yes, the board is working on the recommendation. We will know it in the coming weeks, 2 weeks, and we will know it. Another question, please tell us why the relatively big discrepancies between the results of quarters, so the fourth quarter of 2019 and the first quarter 2020, and the forecast of results, the discrepancies between them. Maybe Rafał Warpechowski will answer this question. CFO has changed, but let me forget about it. But yes, this is the period when last month we've entered a very unsure month. In the end of the year, we were thinking about like what this year will be like. And in the first quarter, in fact, we have to remember that we had 2 months, January and February, and in March there was a correction for the budget. March contributed to the biggest deviation from the forecast. March was simply better, a better month. And as I've already said, the effects of pandemic that affected the companies in March haven't affected us yet. Therefore, the situation and bigger deviations, luckily for the group. But if we only have a better forecasts, then we don't really want anything to be decreased. And now Aluminium Systems, the question another is for Aluminium Systems, but it was commented. What about the current situation on the design market? Big facilities in Poland and abroad, big projects. Chairman Grela has mentioned that we have been observing a lot of uncertainty and doubt about the projects this year and next year. It's very hard to say about the scale of the postponing and how it affects the segment. How about the overdue payments? Does the group have any problems with payments? Mr. Wapachowski, can you actually recapitulate on that? There are no disturbances here. Of course, this is a very crucial element to observe, but right now we are not observing any turbulences. How many companies are hired based on flexible contracts other than job contracts? It's very difficult to address this question because every segment is using those contracts individually. Maybe every segment should comment on that. Maybe Rafał Lechowicz. Rafał Lechowicz, we don't really have it in the flexible packaging. In Aluprof, around 150 people out of 2,200, so around 7% of people. Thank you. How about the extruded products? Around 130 people outsource out of 1,500 people. So around 13-15%. So this is the scale. Are you planning to use this support in the countries in which we operate? Yes, we answered this question. What are the amounts can be due for tax in the special economic zones in 2021-22? I understand that you mean new projects. No, not only because of that, because it depends on the results in Oświęcim, so BOPP films. And here we have annual discussion with the auditor. Last year, our asset was 3 million zloty in the flexible packaging segment. But if we can have it in the coming years, yes, it can happen in the coming years if we are able to maintain higher margins than planned. So we were talking about 11-12% on the level of EBITDA, and we are talking about around 15% this year. But it's really hard to say in detail right now because we would like to operate in January, April period because we have a very dynamic situation on the market, including the flexible packaging segment because we are actually having customers in the segment of restaurants and hotels. So if the hotels don't start operating normally, then the situation will be different, and so we will be affected anyways because this is the margin and operation. And ratio. So it's too early to speak about that. Thank you so much. And another question. What were the EBITDA revenues annual for packaging and films? Alupol packaging and Alupol films. Well, the company is not really presenting results per segments, just general information, and it was reported. What was the volume of production for BOPP films in 2019 by first production line and the second production line? And what do we expect the second line to produce in 2020? Rafał Lechowicz, last year we produced 33,000 tons of BOPP films. 4,000 were produced by the new production line that was launched in the fourth quarter 2019, and the remaining 29,000 tons were produced by the so-called old lines, the 3-year-old line. In 2020, we plan to double the production because this is a twin line, because if we had 29,000 by the first line and we have like 100% capacities used, so we are planning that this will be around 60,000 tons, so twice as much. Thank you so much. What was the volume of processed aluminium in 2019? I understand that across the whole group. I can actually answer that it was around 110,000 tons, because it was not just the extruded products segment that processes aluminium. Aluminium is also processed by the Aluminium Systems segments, and I actually don't include everything that is circling between the segments. We also have third parties aluminium. There are some aluminium films that are bought by the flexible packaging. So we are talking about 130 tons processed in 2019. Processed in 2019. And the last question, I believe the last question. And in connection with the record-setting result delivered by the flexible packaging segment and so many orders for both lines, are you planning to invest in the third production line? So Chairman Mańko will answer, yes, maybe right now, but this kind of information may be presented during the strategy presentation. Well, the situation is too dynamic to take this kind of decisions right now. I understand. Thank you so much. And the last question. President Grela has answered it. Can you tell us what will happen in Belgium and British company, how much less they will earn, how much less the sales will be, and what will be the value of support? Well, I told you this is about around 200,000 zloty monthly of support. Both companies use this kind of support. And so those employees who are not working are supported. In Belgium, we work 3 days out of 5 working days. In Belgium company, we have 13 people not working, and we have this kind of financial support for both companies. We expect that the sales will drop by 20-25% in the second quarter. How about the amounts money? Oh, it's really hard to say. I am unable to calculate it right now, but this shouldn't be more than several million zloty. We have to emphasize that both companies are working on both companies are working mostly on commission. So the sales of the decrease of sales on British and Belgian market can be around 20-25%. Thank you so much. These are all the questions. We had many of those. And as I've mentioned, we are recording our conference, and this recording should be published on our website in internal investors relation tab. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really hope that everyone who declared participation were able to join us today and didn't experience any technical problems. And I hope that another conference will take place normally and we will see each other. So see you and goodbye. Thank you.